listening to a podcast created by the Minnesota Alliance for Geographic Education. Our mission is to help you understand your world better through geography. In this podcast, an experienced teacher explains how and why he engages students on the first day of his geography class by using a single globe and a single geographic statement. The target audience is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade geography teachers. The content in this podcast partially addresses Minnesota geography standards for 8th grade and below, which refer to various geographic representations of the Earth. However, the content is primarily entitled to be a fun geographic activity. Our presenter is Bill Beckman, a master geography teacher from Maple Grove Junior High School in Maple Grove, Minnesota. I am Fred Kunze, a member of the Minnesota Alliance for Geographic Education.
Well, Bill, would you tell us who you are and where you teach to start off?
All right. Well, my name is Bill Beckman, and I teach at Maple Grove Junior High, and I teach world geography. And towards the beginning of the year, I like to introduce my students to what I call the globe demonstration. And the couple benefits of this. One thing, if there's some basic information that I want them to know at the beginning of the year, they can relate that throughout the rest of the year. Plus, it also gives me an idea of who in class is going to be willing to come up in front of the class and do some talking in front of the group right away. I kind of get an idea of who the hands are in class right away. So basically what I do is I give myself a little bit of a build-up. I explain my education and some of the different things I've done throughout my experience teaching geography, institutes I've been to, conventions I've spoken at, that sort of thing. And then I have the globe sitting right up in front, and I say, and this brings me to a very significant place here, and I want you to hear this because I have something very important to share to you. And I look at the globe, and I simply say, this is a globe. And then I walk away from the front of the room, and the students kind of look at each other back and forth and saying, what is he talking about? And then I say, no, I challenge you. I know you've only been in class maybe a week or two, and I want you to see if you can come up to the front and say that dramatic statement about geography. And sometimes I might go up in front and repeat it again. This is a globe. And generally, about 3/4 of the students come up in front, and they're willing to say that very simple statement. After no one else is willing to come up, then I say, well, there's just a touch more with this. And then I say, this is the globe. The globe is the best representation of the Earth. And then I go back and sit down. And most of the kids get through representation. Some stumble on that word, but generally we get about the same number of kids come up because it's kind of fun and they get applause from everybody, so it's very affirming. And then after everyone's said again, I said, well, there's a little bit more. And so then I go to the next part of the phrase, and I say, this is a globe. The globe is the best representation of the Earth because it shows true size, shape, distance, and direction. And then basically I look at the students and say, now, is this really the size of the Earth? And somebody always says, well, no, it's a model exactly. And so what do we mean by that? And eventually someone comes up with the term scale, and then we can look at the scale and talk about the scale of the globe and how it represents a model of the Earth. And then shape, is this the actual shape of the Earth? And they, generally it is, but I say, well, it's actually an oblique ellipsoid, kind of like your Uncle Harry, little flat on the top and the bottom and bulging in the middle. And that gets usually a little bit of a chuckle too. And then distance, and we look at distance, and of course it's not really an inch between certain cities on the globe, or countries in this case. And then again, it relates back to scale. And then the next thing we talk about is direction. And the globe, of course, shows true direction. We look at great circle routes and that sort of thing. Then after we explain those things a little bit, then I go back and recite again, this is the globe. The globe is the best representation of the Earth because it shows true size, shape, distance, and direction. And then I get a bunch of students come up and say that again, and about half the class about says that. And at that point, then the next phrase is, this is a globe, it's the best representation of the Earth because it shows true size, shape, distance, and direction. The Earth has 2 main movements. And then about the same number, about half the class does that. And at this point, too, there's a number of students feverishly copying things down so they can be studying and listening to this so they can recite it again. And after that group settles down again, then I start again. This is the globe. It's the best representation of the Earth because it shows true size, shape, distance, and direction. The Earth has 2 main movements. One is rotation, the spinning of the Earth on its axis from west to east in an easterly direction once every 24 hours, producing day and night. And they throw down their pens, those that are writing. They say, oh, man, I can't write all that down. And then we say basically, no, think about this. You know what this is about. How long does it take the Earth to rotate once? Well, 24 hours. We know. What does it cause? Well, it causes day and night. The thing that they don't know usually is the direction it rotates. And I take the globe and I like to, since it's from west to east, I like to put my finger in the western part of the U.S. and push it to the east. And that way they get the general idea. They know west to east in the United States at least. And then after that we have maybe a dozen kids at the most, maybe 10 will be trying to recite that again. And we really give those kids some encouragement. And periodically someone who hasn't said anything yet will come up. And like a radio show, we like to call those first responders, first-time callers or first-time reciters. And then after everyone has kind of said as much as they'll say about that, then we go to the last section. We say this is the globe. It's the best representation of the Earth because it shows true size, shape, distance, and direction. The Earth has two main movements. One is rotation, the spinning of the Earth from west to east in easterly direction once every 24 hours, producing day and night. The second movement is revolution, the movement of the Earth around the Sun in a path called an orbit, which takes 365.25 days or 1 year. And then, again, we have this silence in the classroom. And then periodically there's a couple of kids that have always been the first one. They always want to recite. And then I encourage them to come up and I tell them I'll help them through with that sort of thing. And we talk about, again, revolution. They know what that is. They know how long a year is. And they know that the Earth goes around the Sun. It's just learning the pattern of the speech, basically. And then to wrap the whole thing up, from the very top, it goes like this. This is a globe. It's the best representation of the Earth because it shows true size, shape, distance, and direction. The Earth has two main movements. One is rotation, the spinning of the Earth on its axis from west to east in easterly direction once every 24 hours, producing day and night. The second movement is revolution, the movement of the Earth around the Sun in a path called an orbit, which takes 365.25 days or 1 year. Revolution and the tilt of the Earth's axis at 23.5 degrees cause our four seasons, summer, fall, winter, and spring. We can also go then through a demonstration of what revolution looks like by walking around the room showing the tilt of the Earth's axis that remains constant. And by that point, I ask how many students do you know at least half of this? And a good proportion of the class already knows it. And then my next thing to tell them is in 4 or 5 days, they're going to have to be able to write this out from memory. And everybody kind of, there's some mumbling and complaining at that point. But then I also tell them they have I'll give them a one-time limited offer. If you can stand up in front of the class and recite the day before the quiz and basically say everything you need to say, you don't have to take the quiz. And that's very motivating. And I like to tell the students, too, when they go home and study for this, that they're going to be reciting out loud. Tell your parents what you're doing. So when you go up to your room and they hear you mumbling to yourself, they know you're not losing your mind, but you're in fact studying your geography. So that's my globe demonstration.
Well, that's really a neat thing, and it sounds like it's a very easy to implement lesson plan. All a teacher needs is a globe in a classroom, and you just bring that in and put it on the table and start out very simply, drawing in lots of kids. Mm-hmm. It really sets up a broad framework for the whole geography class for the year.
That it does.
Well, thank you very much. And we want to make sure we give credit for this.
Yes, this original idea came from a good friend of mine, Gary Agron, who was a retired teacher from Blue Earth, Minnesota.
And we both knew Gary probably 20 years ago or so now.
Right.
And we wish him well, and he was indeed a great geography teacher.
You have been listening to a production of the Minnesota Alliance for Geographic Education. Background music is courtesy of Jim Hogue of Decorah, Iowa. The Minnesota Alliance is a non-profit group of educators and other parties who are interested in promoting an enhanced understanding of our world through improved geographic literacy.